And tonight we're going to take a look at chapter 15, Awakening the Heart. I think this is a very important chapter. The mind's first aspiration for awakening is true awakening. The mind's first aspiration for awakening is true awakening. And of course, what he's talking about at that point is bodhicitta. Bodhicitta is our first opening, our first experience. It translated as awakening mind. It literally means bodhi, meaning, of course, wisdom. Citta means mind. It can be translated as in several different ways, actually. And so I looked it up just to get a definition of bodhicitta. Bodhicitta is a term used in Mahayana for enlightened mind. It is the combination of wisdom, understanding the true nature of reality, and compassion, the commitment to save all beings from suffering. Bodhicitta is sometimes called the heart mind of the Buddha. One of the things that I didn't realize, actually, until I started preparing this talk, was that I think I've always thought of bodhicitta as that first time. But in fact, and I think probably the Tibetans talk more about this, bodhicitta goes on all the time. We have this appreciation, and it really speaks to the appreciation of Buddha wisdom that then leads us to experience compassion. And that doesn't just happen once. That continually goes on. And I, for one, certainly didn't think about that until I was sort of putting this together. It's interesting that the person he chooses to show us an example of this is Rosa Parks, who said, "I would like to be remembered as someone who wanted to be free so other people would be free." He talks then about the chapter of the Flower Garland Sutra that lists the 10 stages of enlightenment, and goes into how apparently 10 distinct steps on the path to true awakening to complete Buddhahood, starting with an initial moment of bodhicitta. It's interesting that on the next page, though, on the top of it, he talks about the description of each of these stages, apparently, contains every liberative quality one could possibly imagine. So probably not unlike we think about the paramitas. One of these descriptions leads right into the other one. They are all mutually contained. He then talks about the fact that he gives the example of the Queen Srimala, who says, because the Lord Tathagata does not dwell within the limits of time, they dwell at the uttermost limit. The Tathagata, the Tathagatas do not have a time limit for their compassion or for their pledge to heal the world. It strikes me too that this comes back to what we've been talking about with Dogen. This is practice enlightenment. This is Uji. When we have that first moment of bodhicitta, it is enlightenment. It is our first enlightenment, perhaps. But then we know that all practice, if we believe what Dogen says, all practice is enlightenment. And so bodhicitta is a part of that. And as a part of that, it also agrees with Uji, which is all time is contained in, as we learn, as we just chanted in this. Every moment contains all time, and all time contains every moment. We are, he goes on then to say, we are called to a compassion that is utterly limitless. Speaking of the Bodhisattva's vow to liberate all beings, the Flower Garland Sutra states, as long as Earth exists, as long as all beings exist, as long as acts and afflictions exist, so long will my vow remain. Let me stop there just for a second to see if there's any questions or comments. Okay. He then talks about in the book how in Soto Zen we don't look at results so much as we look at effort and practice. We de-emphasize attaining something else and focus on practice now, on this moment of aspiration as true awakening. Again, he's really repeating practice enlightenment of Dogen. We focus on activity of making the vows together. And this is something I find interesting because this is something I believe that's from the Minnesota Zen Meditation Center. And he says, there we focus on the activity of making the vow together, not on individually attaining the immeasurable aspirations they point towards. He then lists the four bodhisattva vows, and as they say them, there's no I, which is an interesting way to think about the bodhisattva vows, and probably a way where they don't sound quite so impossible. But he lists them as being are numberless, vowing to free them. Delusions are inexhaustible, vowing to extinguish them. Dharma gates are boundless, vowing to enter them. And Buddhist way is unsurpassable, vowing to become it. Yes, go ahead.
Recall when Ben was here for the retreat and we were doing that chant. And he chanted it
that way.
But I don't know if you noticed, but it was something that I noticed right away. He emphasized the drone in the chant. So beings are numberless, saving, and it was just like this.
Oh,
So I imagine, and I don't know if this is true, but I imagine at Minnesota Zen Center, if there are a larger number of people in the room, right, emphasizing the communal taking of the vow rather than the I, emphasizing the drone becomes this collective sound that then ties.
Yeah.
I mean, we get that drone when we do it, right?
There's a specific kind of way that I've heard people chant like that, and it's typically in monasteries, or it's only in monasteries where I've heard it. But I know I agree with you. I mean, there is. I believe there's a power in doing it that way, and there is a power, and you feel more of the of everybody combined. I agree with you.
And another thing, admitting this, our sutra, I don't quite have it memorized yet, and I gave my copy to Aaron when we were doing it Saturday, and so I used the drone as a way to just kind of gloss over the part that I didn't remember and just waiting until I could remember to pick up. So, which is how I learned the shorter chants, right? Chanting in, chanting out, the robe chant. I just kept listening and kept droning until I could start to pick it up. So, and to me, that's a very inclusive practice. So again, if de-emphasizing that, even though I like our version, I vow, because it still is an individual thing that we're taking the vow personally. So we can still do it personally and also do it together. So
absolutely. When I say it at home, I definitely say it. Mike.
Yeah, I had the opportunity to practice out there at Ben's place, and there was a lot of humans. So we were, I think, 3 or 4 rows just on our side of their main service area. Yeah. But the really cool part, I mean, it threw me off with not having that little beat of the I in there. But man, hearing a whole whack of people do that together was really cool. So if you ever get the chance, it's a wonderful facility, as are a lot of other facilities out there too. But yeah.
I have not been there, but I've been to Zen Mountain Monastery, where the sessions are about 60 people, and there is something in hearing that many people chanting that's very powerful, very, very helpful. So, okay. Anything else? Okay. I like the story that he tells about the nun who's visiting from China, the Venerable Ding, who says to the group, please raise your hand if you aspire to attain enlightenment in this lifetime. And of course, everybody did probably what we would do, which is, no, you can't have any goals, you can't focus. Nobody raised their hand, but she raised hers and said, I aspire. So we can aspire, we just can't have the goal, I guess. But from there, he talks about the Buddha himself, and this was striking to me in a way, and I'll talk about that in a second. Buddha, which means awakened one, devoted his whole life to living simply, being at peace, and helping other people be well in ways that were flexible and responsive. The end point of the path is just the path. I think it's really easy, at least it's easy for me, and I know I've heard from some other people that they feel the same way, to get kind of lost in everything you feel like you should do, in terms of taking care of the world around you and everything you see going on, all of the difficult and stressful stuff. But this really talks about the Buddha just living his life and doing what was in front of him. He wasn't running around trying to start a political organization or do anything else. He was doing what was right there. And Ben goes on then to talk about the Pilgrim Sudana, who was apparently the last chapter of the Flower Garland Sutra. And what he says is the Sudana never stops opening to new relationships and teachers, and that their various realizations were practices: feeding people, providing medicine, guiding folks through storms, freeing prisoners, healing with touch, teaching the Dharma, and and mathematics. And then the last teacher who was a teacher about sexuality. This is, I think, points for us to do just what I was talking about in terms of what the Buddha did. What's in front of you? What's in your life? Where can you make a difference? I don't think we have to go looking real far. And a lot of times I think we want to. Maybe it's easier to look over there than look right in front of you. But I know it is for me. And I found that a reminder of what the Buddha was like, what he did, how he lived his life. And I thought that was very helpful. In the next part of he talks about the paramitas, the first 6, and then the addition of 4 more so that they would come to an auspicious number of 10. But the important thing is what he says about that these are both the cause and the result of our awakening. So the more we try and practice the paramitas, the more we wake up, but the more we wake up, the more it moves us to practice the paramitas. And I think no less so the precepts. Yeah.
Before we go on, I had a question back on page 109, just
Sure.
above where you started reading. That paragraph that starts out with Chinmo teaches that we first attain an initial awakening experience.
Wait a minute. I'm not sure because I've read a number of things there. Where are you at on 209? On 109?
Beginning of that paragraph.
Halfway down.
Where you started reading, just above where you started reading at the beginning of that paragraph.
The one that starts with Chanul or a few months?
Yes, that's it, Chinmo.
With Chanul. Okay, go ahead.
Well, first, I might as well, who's Chinmo? Should I recognize that name?
I have no idea who it is
Okay.
either, but I think it is probably one of the people one of the teachers of that time, but I don't recognize the
No,
name.
I'm good. I just thought I missed something. So anyhow, I kind of stopped whenever, we talk to each other about practicing to deepen, to deepen ourselves, to deepen the practice. We first attain an initial awakening experience, then we practice to deepen it. But then we also talk about practicing with no gain in mind.
Mm-hmm.
And then again, here we are practicing to deepen our awakening. So it's just, I don't know if I have a question about that. It's just
Yeah.
confusing teaching. Which teaching should I listen to? I know it's probably both. There's something in there to be said for practicing to deepen my awakening, and that's what I do. That's why I'm here today. But then again,
well, it's that
just doing this with no gain in mind.
It's going back to our talk with Dean, and not having goals, but moving. How do you do that? Well, this is talking about the same thing. I very purposely didn't add that one because I thought it goes back to that sort of confusing duality about not having goals, but you do have aspirations. That's a hard one, and it was purposeful that I skipped that sentence because, for just that reason, because knowing that the question might come up. But do I have an answer to that? I don't exactly. I mean, it is within that same framework that we talk about not having goals per se, and yet practice and moving forward with practice. You can look at deepening practice as a goal. So then it becomes a problem, and it's I don't have a good answer to that.
I think maybe we could think of the difference between intention and goal, and the idea of a goal being something that you are striving for, and that there's an expectation
that you'll reach it.
That you'll reach it, and that you will be transformed and you will be different upon attaining that goal. So the goal of deepening your practice is setting yourself up for an expectation that if I practice enough and deepen, my practice will deepen and I'll be a better Buddhist. Whereas I try to think of it as you can still have an intention. I'm going to intend to practice, even though I may not want to today, or even though my sit is currently going haywire, because for the past 15 minutes of the sit, I've realized that my thoughts have been, and I'm like, oh shit, go back. But the intention is to not give up and to practice. And I think by having that intention and practicing, the result is going to be a deepened practice, whether you set out to accomplish that or not. So just by sticking with it and doing it and committing to that practice. That's how I'm trying to, and always that idea of holding things loosely. Right?
Absolutely.
It's not a goal.
Absolutely.
That I'm going to get there, and in my brain, I'm expecting an outcome. Rather, my intention is just to practice. And through that practice, it will hopefully naturally get deeper.
Yeah. Sure. No, I think that's a reasonably good explanation of the two differences. And, most of the time, I think, especially because so much of what we study is translated, we really get into issues with words. The difference between aspiration, goal, pick one. You can come up with others. And it's how you define each one. But I think with the different explanations we've had, I at least feel like I'm starting to come to some sense of what that is without being able to put words to it. I mean, it's that sense of, I'm going to do this, and this is my practice, that it will, in all likelihood, lead me somewhere. But the one thing, I guess the one thing that struck me about that is we can't even know where we're going. We can't. We don't understand the absolute. We never can. I think one of the things that hit me the hardest was when I realized that science is cognitive, and therefore we'll never understand it completely. Because we have cognitive limits.
Sorry. I like that intention, and it occurs to me when you said intention, you can have an intention to be enlightened, and so you practice, and that's the wrong way, that's a goal. Or you can have an intention to practice, and eventually, hopefully, you become awakened, enlightened, but your intention is to practice.
Yeah.
So, and that's what keeps me going from day to day practicing, is I have that intention to keep practicing. So, and yes, it's good. I like that.
I don't disagree, but it's still we can only get so far with those kind of understandings, and I think that's the primary thing that is driving me at this moment is it's all limited. You nothing that you can do cognitively is going to get you there. Nothing that you can do verbally is going to get you there. Practice, hopefully, is going to get you there. And, as the Buddha said, he talked about when he said, my words are a finger pointing at the moon, don't confuse my finger with the moon. That I knew. It's the next sentence. But the only way that you're going to understand is my finger pointing at the moon. In other words, you need that. You can't just shut your brain off and do this. You've got to use your cognitive stuff to move you in that direction. I mean, that's how I understand that teaching. We can't get there without our cognition, but we can't get all the way there with our cognition. We can start to understand, but it's beyond words. It's beyond cognitive understanding. And to a point, it's just being there, just today, right now, here, being here, and not thinking about it. So, anything else? No, I think that's good points. Yeah. So he goes on to say, these are both the cause and result of awakening. In one sutra from the Pali Canon, the Buddha teaches that the path leading to nirvana is mindfulness of the body and is the destination and the path leading to the destination. All these teachings collapse the difference between your moment of practice now and the total liberation from suffering that Buddhism promises is possible. He then talks about Maitreya Buddha extols the power of Sudana's aspiration for enlightenment when he says, just as one lamp can light 1,000,000 lamps without being diminished, so too can one aspiration for awakening light millions of aspirations. It again brings to mind this idea of the absolute, of all things being interconnected, of everything we do affecting everything else in the universe. But I love most of all the story that he ends with, where he talks about sitting with a fellow recovering alcoholic. He had a couple of years of sobriety. The other guy had a couple weeks. And the other man was talking about how he felt that he was broken, that there was a gaping chasm between himself and the life that he wanted and the person that he wanted to be. He says, I saw him with the eyes of all who had sat with me, heard with the ears of hundreds of people who sat in circles and listened to my story of brokenness, of wanting to be free. This hearing didn't see the gap. This seeing heard nothing broken. We were together, complete. We cared enough, had enough compassion, and had compassion enough to meet on the path, guided perhaps by just a spark from a flint, or maybe a blazing sun of aspiration for well-being. I like the way he explained that and looked at that. He could see the wholeness of the other person, the wholeness of the two of them together communicating about these things. And not just the brokenness, but the aspiration to be better, the aspiration to do, to live differently, to be a better person, to live a better life. It's kind of what we do when we first experience bodhicitta, when we first have that aspiration. And I think probably everyone in this room and on Zoom tonight has had that aspiration way more than once. It's one that comes with each thing that can bring us to that. Joe.
So in looking at the title of chapter 15, The Awakened Heart, that kind of sums it up in the last paragraph, the last couple sentences. That's the awakened heart.
Yep. Yeah. So it's a wonderful summation of what it is to have an awakened heart. So. Fine.
And I don't remember where I first picked this up before coming here, reading different writers talk about meditation and Buddhism. But one of the things that I've always thought about in terms of awakened mind is that, and I think I learned this about Buddhism really early, you're already awakened. You're perfect as you are. It's just that daily life and our monkey mind clouds our true nature from us. And practice is the constant, using the sword of wisdom to cut away at delusion and ignorance, to get back to the awakened heart that we already have. It's not something that we need to gain that we don't have. We're just awakening to our own awakened heart.
Yeah.
So it's just like, and it's like this thing that I always think about in sitting. It's like, okay, over half of my sit tonight was monkey mind, right? Without even realizing it. But it's just, okay, just come back. Just come back to the moment. Just come back to the breath. It's all good. All good. No judgment.
Yeah.
And so that kind of reminder that we're already awakened. We already have awakened heart. We already have bodhicitta. It's already there. You just have to remind yourself.
Yeah. No,
and when that happens, it's like enlightenment. I remember having those experiences before I even knew what Buddhism was or meditation, having those moments of interconnectedness with the universe and all living beings without even knowing what that was, and just having like these moments of like, you're just overwhelmed with, whether they call it the sublime or whether, it's just this. And at that time, before I knew any better, it was, I need to get back to that. How do I get back to that? It was almost like a drug. Right. And now that I know what that is, it's not necessarily a drug, and it's not something I chase, because I know that chasing it,
you won't find it.
You won't find it. So
something to be.
One of the things that has been interesting to me in looking at this is the understanding, because I've spent so much of my life looking at human nature and what that's about, is the understanding that we are born without a self. We create it. Our parents create it for us mostly, but we create that self. But it is absolutely necessary to function in this world. Without it, we can't do it. We need our cognitive abilities. We need all of that. It's like we forgot the important part, that there's something beyond that. So, yeah,
I think the self is like the very definition of dependent arising.
Yeah. Oh, it is.
Keep packing it in there when they're this big, and
well, one of the first things that I learned was about primary narcissism. Primary narcissism is a newborn baby. The newborn baby sees the whole world as an extension of itself. It doesn't differentiate between anything or anyone, as far as we know. And the first differentiation is between it and mother or caretaker, whoever that is. That's the first. You differentiate and understand that, oh, this is someone, and interestingly enough, who can take care of my needs if I'm hungry, they'll take care of me. If I'm wet and I need somebody to change, I can scream, and this person, whatever this is, comes and takes care of me. And then from there, you differentiate out into other people as well. But that appears to be the first differentiation that we make. we learn to be the self. So, anything else? Well, this is what happens when you have me as a teacher. We end up early, so. So let's chant out here. We're about 10 minutes ahead. So I vow to myself and to each of you to commit myself daily to the healing of our world and the welfare of all beings, to live on earth more lightly and less violently in the food, products, and energy I consume, to draw strength and guidance from the living earth, the ancestors, the future generations, and my brothers and sisters of all species, to support others in our work for the world, and to ask for help when I need it, to pursue a daily practice that clarifies my mind, strengthens my heart, and supports me in observing these vows. Good night, everyone, and we'll see you Saturday, hopefully. Take good care.
Thank you, John.
Thank you, John.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
It was awesome.
Good night. Thank you.